Merry Christmas!
No, Nathan, happy holidays.
But we don't care.
I know, but we gotta set up this movie somehow.
I will do this movie no favors.
Welcome back to Faith on Film, where we raid your church library in search of the good stuff. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Nathan. Last year we glimpsed the war on Christmas from a sorta, kinda a thing perspective. So, let's get into it more this year.
Nathan, non-Christians are evil!
Well, from my point of view, evangelicals are evil!
Then you are! What are we doing? We're on the same side.
Well, there was no one else to fight with, so I settled for you.
Gee, thanks.
The fabled war on Christmas is an idea bandied about by certain Christians, and comprises the seculars of the world fighting against their religion and expelling any mention of the birth of our Lord from the public sphere. Clearly, this is persecution on the level of Nero.
Yeah, about that. See, there's this thing in America where not everybody holds the same religious belief. What's more, there is a slew of other holidays between November and January. And yes, surprisingly, that includes more than Hanukkah. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, December 7th is also a national holiday. And what this war on Christmas really is just people, mostly large corporations, trying to be more cognizant of that. And there is also the whole establishment clause, you know, the government not endorsing one particular religious practice over another.
No, seriously, that's it. But we'll get into that more as we discuss The Last Ounce of Courage.
This movie begins with a quote from the late Ronald Reagan, and... Oh, hey Ronnie, you're here. And you brought everybody.
I am proud to be represented by such stout-hearted Americans.
Steph? Your bobbleheads are talking?
Oh, you'll get used to it.
Okay.
We are treated to a title sequence about a young man named Thomas who's about to ship off for the military, leaving behind his obviously pregnant wife. Okay, how long till he dies?
Almost instantly.
Of course.
Not that it feels like it. This goodbye sequence takes interminably long, despite telling us very little about the characters. It's not even clear whether his mom is his mom until after he's dead.
The rest of the movie follows his surviving family, the, Reveres. Jeez. Could you be any more on the nose about how patriotic this family is?
Oh, just wait.
Well, that's concerning. Hang on. Are you drinking straight whiskey?
I need to be prepared for this movie.
Already this story is getting pretty weird. Prior to Tom's death, we really only see Kari, his wife, in the house with her in-laws as though she's living there with her new baby. But then, as soon as the funeral is over, they're packing her up into the car as though they were never going to see each other again. That seems like a good idea. Send the grieving widow away.
The father, Bob, meanwhile, spends over a decade in mourning, including putting away his precious motorcycle by draping an American flag over it. Yep.
But that doesn't stop him from maintaining connections with the local biker gang who we see come into his pharmacy for an off-the-books surgery? Oh, hold on a minute. Is a pharmacist qualified to perform surgery? I feel like this is a much bigger deal than this movie is willing to admit. But no, this is just a quirky thing that happens. You know, just being a small town doesn't automatically make you Mayberry.
But that's not all. Bob is also the mayor.
So, he's the mayor, and the town pharmacist, and an underground surgeon, and a full-time grieving dad? That's a lot of hats for one character to wear. No wonder he's so cranky all the time.
Kari and her son Christian, because of course his name is Christian, come into town for Thanksgiving, and it appears to be the first time that they've been there since his dad passed. Because, A, Christian has no idea of any of the family history. B, everyone that Kari knew here in her youth acts like they haven't seen her since then. So, I gotta ask, did they really no-contact her over having a dead husband? If so, that's a colossal dick move on the in-laws' part.
Christian seems instantly smitten by a young girl that just happens to wander into the Revere's garage because that's a thing that she can do because her dad was best friends with his dad. And her dad also seems to have a thing for his mom, Kari, which is making this sort of a weird Brady Bunch situation that the movie never really feels compelled to address.
Bob is grumpy because the mission of the cross no longer has a cross. Even though his wife says that they bought it! They own the thing! But apparently, because one character said that they didn't like it, they had to take down the cross. You did that of your own free will, and now you're mad that you did that!
Wait a second. Did you say they also run a mission? Okay, seriously, how many hats does this guy wear? Also, it's still called the Mission of the Cross, right? We see that several times throughout the movie. So, if they had to take the cross down because someone was offended, wouldn't they also have to change the name?
Everyone celebrated whatever holidays they liked, but the mayor, whose son died in Iraq, his blood pressure spiked. The mayor hated all greetings of seasons. Please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight, or perhaps that his head wasn't screwed on just right. But I think what it boils down to, in fact, was that his son went off and died in Iraq.
Hang on. This movie came out in 2012, and we are told that the main events of this story are 14 years after the death of Thomas. So I'm assuming that this movie takes place in present day because there's no indication anywhere that this is the distant future. But, we didn't invade Iraq until 2003. And the war in Afghanistan was 2001. So, what war did Thomas fight in exactly?
I had to do research for this movie to answer this question.
Oh?
Turns out, there was a war that the US was involved in that started in 1998. The Kosovo War.
Hey Bill, where are you going?
I gotta go clean my saxophone.
At first I thought, okay, weird choice having the monumentally important war for your story be a conflict that most Americans don't even remember happening. Then I learned that there were a grand total of two, count 'em, two casualties among US troops in that war, and they weren't even in combat. A helicopter crashed during a training exercise. And just to add on top of that, the United States didn't even get involved until 1999. So, in just about every way that this movie could fail to capture the reality of the situation, it does.
I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this movie's writers are being incredibly vague about which war this is on purpose. After all, they have a message to sell, and who has time for things like details? We're told that his son died defending America, but what exactly does that mean? Yeah, freedom isn't free. I've heard the line since grade school. But it does kind of make a difference which war we're talking about, because not all wars are equal. If he died in, say, World War II, besides completely wrecking the timeline, that would make some degree of sense in that you can make an argument that he was defending something worthwhile. But since the turn of the century, Have the wars that the U.S. military have been involved in really impacted the day-to-day life of the average American in any significant way? Think about it. We lost the war in Vietnam, and nothing particularly changed. We won? Are we winning the war on terror?
But I said mission accomplished!
George 43, sit down.
I can't. My knees don't bend.
All of that to say, I failed to see how any of our freedoms were on the line for any of those conflicts. So making Thomas out to be this grandiose martyr for freedom and the American way of life just comes off as hollow.
Christian gets in trouble at school for having an illicit possession.
It's the Bible.
It's a Bible. That's not how this works. The janitor, Leonard, even points out that there's no rule saying the students can't have Bibles or pray at school. So when Bob questions the principal about this, he says it's a precaution against a lawsuit.
Okay. I can see a teacher or an administrator overreacting to something innocuous. That sort of thing, unfortunately, does happen. But this movie makes it sound like it's something that only happens to Christians, and that is not true. The same guy who overreacts to a Bible in school one day is very likely to overreact to a slightly revealing crop top the next day.
Wait. Christian is enrolled in school here?
Apparently.
So he and Kari live here and weren't just visiting for Thanksgiving. When did that happen? You need to establish things like that? This incident, if you can call it that, prompts Christian to ask why Christians have to hide their faith and why nobody celebrates Christmas anymore. Spare me. It is established multiple times throughout the movie that people have been celebrating Christmas continuously in their homes and in their churches. So, what is he even talking about?
What are you doing?
Could we watch this one instead? We have actual dignity in it.
Sit down, John.
Now somebody open up a window. Maybe we can get out that way.
Christian's questioning inspires Bob to make sure his son didn't die in vain and to take some kind of stand for Christmas. This stand takes the form of digging out some old decorations from storage and putting them up around town. Yes, because I certainly see no Christmas decorations every time I leave the house between mid-October and mid-January.
None whatsoever.
His decorations attract the attention of an onlooker who asks if that's illegal. No? If I was to assign a name to that shape, I think it's a star? That is not an inherently religious symbol. Last time I checked, everyone believes in stars. And this is the first instance of a reoccurring problem in this movie. All of this religious iconography that the characters are so dedicated to defending is almost universally secular. The teenagers go through the attic looking for some old decorations, and they pull out a reindeer and a Santa Claus. Again, not inherently religious, contrary to what Kirk Cameron might tell you.
Bob even talks about some town outlawing trees. I don't think you can do that. The ecosystem says no.
What? Why are you looking at me?
Well, I just figured chopping down trees kind of seems like you're...
Oh, sure. A guy writes a thing about me and everyone assumes I actually did it. Well, you know what, buddy? Don't believe everything you read. I'm out.
Nathan, could you stop insulting my collection?
I'm sorry, I had no idea.
This is where the movie really starts to dig its heels on the whole Christmas being under attack, even though they also say that there is no law against it. Yeah, we know. And they'll occasionally pay lip service to the notion that if you display symbols from one religion, you also have to display symbols from others to represent everyone equally. But they never actually go out of their way to try to do that?
Bob even suggests that if somebody wants to light the menorah and blow their shofar for Hanukkah, they can. Bob, the shofar isn't traditionally associated with Hanukkah. It's typically used during the high holidays, which usually fall between September and October, and then they're more often than not put away. Hanukkah is not one of the high holidays. Literally the only reason you are aware of it is because it's close to Christmas.
I struggle to call him antagonist shows up. A representative of the not ACLU named Warren Hammerschmidt. Awesome name. And probably a reference to the actor Fred Williamson's nickname being the Hammer. As you can imagine, he's not particularly pleased with all of these decorations, and Bob continues to tell him that he doesn't have a case. Repeat ad nauseum.
This is not courage. I should know. I wrote the book on it. Hey, Jack, wait up.
Eventually, there is a smear campaign to claim that Bob was never actually a war hero and didn't earn the Medal of Honor we only found out he had like 3 minutes earlier. But it's done by anonymous person, and we're not even sure what the scandal is supposed to be. Because when Bob goes to explain to his wife what happened, between his sobbing and the music playing far too loud, we couldn't tell what the story was. Something about freeing POWs, and he stepped on a tripwire, and Leonard, the aforementioned janitor, lost a lot of blood, but Leonard thinks the world of Bob, so we're not even sure who was supposed to have leaked this.
This subplot really doesn't go anywhere, and it ends with Christian being interviewed by the local news, where he confidently puts the matter to rest by asserting he's a hero! Because the opinion of an obviously very biased 14-year-old settles the matter, apparently.
The city council elects to remove Bob from office. So, great! He's no longer an elected official, which means the conflict is over, right?
Wrong.
Drat.
By the way, was Bob even a good mayor in the first place? You're right down to it. In this movie, the only mayoral-related duties we really ever saw him do were related to Christmas decorations. And the only townspeople we see him interact with are the biker gangs who need secret surgery. Maybe he deserves to be fired.
Bob, in a desperate plea to be courageous, decides to take his tacky Jesus Aves cross out of storage to reattach it to the mission. By himself.
I'm only brave when I have to be. Being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble.
Since this is a very heavy object that he's trying to lift from the roof, he needs a little bit of help. So Christian and one of the biker guys come on up from the crowd, while everyone else watches in eager anticipation. Bob then proceeds to give a rousing speech about nothing of consequence, and is promptly arrested. Why Christian and biker guy aren't also arrested is anybody's guess, since they are just as complicit in this non-crime as he was, but whatever. I've given up on this movie.
So, that's the climax, which means this movie must be finally wrapping up.
Oh no, there's another climax coming. A running subplot throughout this movie has been Christian's friends plotting to sabotage the school play to make it about Jesus. Here's the problem. It kind of already was. Okay, it's about aliens seeking the prophesied birth of a king who will grant dignity and humanity to all people, whose birth is heralded by a star. Okay, technically a supernova, but still a star. A public school is clearly doing an allegory for the Nativity. And this is framed as a bad thing, which I find a little hypocritical considering that a lot of churches and Christian media do the exact same thing.
Ah, but this is directed by a character who's obviously coded gay, and that makes it blasphemous because no gay director has ever done justice to the birth of Jesus.
So the kids swap out their costumes the night of the performance, and Leonard helps them lock the director in the closet. Okay. While Bob listens to the pageant on a radio that a mysterious stranger that we've seen every now and again was so kind to bring him.
But Christian, after repeatedly saying he didn't want to participate in the sabotage, approaches the gal running the tech booth and whispers in her ear before barreling on stage and interrupting the angel. Okay, rude. He then directs everyone's attention to the video he's about to play in which his dad...
Oh look, we lost Franklin Pierce.
In which his dad wishes him and his mother a Merry Christmas. In the middle of a combat zone.
Mom, Grandma, I sure hope you're emotionally prepared for what's about to happen. No sooner does Tom finish his wonderful, rousing, Christmas is wonderful, Merry Christmas everyone speech, are he and his whole platoon violently killed in an explosion. You just showed a snuff film on a giant screen to a crowd of people with no warning? What's wrong with you? And seriously, what is it with Christian Christmas specials and having no concept of personal boundaries? Also, holy crap, we need to invest in whatever company made that camera if it can withstand damage like that.
To make matters even worse, Christian then brings out the American flag and puts it front and center. The principal comes up on stage, seemingly to stop all of this, only to then initiate a slow clap. Oh, it's all gone.
Am I the only one that thinks that applause is not the appropriate reaction to footage of soldiers getting blown up? Then there's the bigger problem. This movie is more about paying respect to America than it is to Jesus. Don't believe me? Christian interrupted the retelling of the birth of Jesus to talk about his soldier dad, and then he plopped the American flag right in front of the creche, completely overshadowing the baby Jesus.
This movie is this close to saying the US military died for your sins. I'm not even sure I can call this Christianity anymore. This is the best representation I've ever seen of the idea called American civil religion, where the true object of worship is the patriotic ideal of America itself, with Jesus as merely a reference point thereof.
We weren't shown a church or a creche set in this entire movie. Okay, there was the one at the very end in the school play, but as we've kind of mentioned, it kind of gets blocked by that giant screen, and it's never really focused on at all for really even a second of screen time. So does it really count? I'm going to go with no, it doesn't. The point is, this movie is so caught up in patriotism, in talk of freedoms and America and soldiers and veterans, that it doesn't really take any time to talk about Jesus at all. Just look at this thing. The American flag is draped all over this movie. Over Bob's motorcycle, over the poster, the DVD cover, all over the trailer. But you know what's suspiciously missing? Anything that directly points to Jesus himself. And contrary to popular belief, Americanism and Christianity are not synonymous with each other. By the way, there was that subplot about the Veterans Center that Bob wanted to build. That didn't really go anywhere, did it?
Well, a lot of stuff in this movie doesn't really go anywhere. Like JJ.
Who?
Oh, she's the Revere's daughter.
They had a daughter?
Yeah, she was brought up twice.
Oh. Okay.
I do not blame you for forgetting. She didn't see eye to eye with her parents, and so cut contact sometime before the story ever started.
Okay.
And she comes back to them at the turning of the tide when she sees her dad's rousing speech at his arrest and walks off of her job as a news anchor. So, the only thing that we know about this woman post-estrangement, scratch that, literally the only thing we know about her, period, is her career. So, I am forced to conclude that she cut ties with her family simply to become a news anchor. I don't think that's part of the job, ma'am. You're not part of the watch. How many times do we have to tell these Christmas classic wannabes that real life does not stop at Christmas?
We also briefly touched on Kari's relationship with her dead husband's best friend. What was his name? Who cares? Point is, this also goes nowhere. There is no story here. He's the arresting officer when Bob goes to jail, and that doesn't even bear any consequences of any type on their relationship. So what was the point? Also, I kind of find it really funny that every single time these two characters go in for a kiss, the scene changes, so we never actually see them lock lips. And maybe I've just been living in purity culture for too long.
So, because the whole town stood up and cheered at the Christmas death footage, I suppose that means Bob gets let out of jail? Not how going to jail works, but okay. He then informs his family that he heard the play on the radio, and his wife tells him it wasn't on the radio. And Bob is mystified! Sir? The mysterious stranger appeared in your cell without opening the door. You don't get to be surprised now that it was an angel.
Just another example of there being a lot going on in this movie, but nothing actually happening. This movie is so clearly pandering to a very specific demographic of people that they even brought in good old Bill O'Reilly to weigh in on their cause. Not Bill O'Reilly making a cameo, mind you. Footage of Bill O'Reilly weighing in on the war on Christmas and how it is manifested by retail workers saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. Okay, that might be the best self-burn on this so-called culture war that I have ever heard. Is your God so small that he needs to be vindicated by stressed out, overworked, underpaid retail workers saying the correct holiday greeting to you? Is your faith so spineless that it needs to be reaffirmed by what's in department stores and coffee shops?
Because it went over so well at the beginning, the ending treats us to yet another Reagan quote.
And a very long one.
Huh. This movie even broke Reagan. Shall we get into ratings, Steph?
This movie made my President Bobbleheads run away. Sarcastic applause.
No arguments! Thank you for joining us for Faith on Film. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Stephanie. We'll see you next time.
I can't help but feel like we forgot something. Holy crap, this movie locked the gay character back in the closet and then left him there!
Oh, good, you got that out of your system.
Thank you. I ad-libbed and now I forgot where I'm going with this.
the teenagers go through the attic and find all these old directions that the... Directions?
Oh, see? Hooper Street used to be downtown. I didn't know that. Merry Christmas. Here are the old the directions. Oh, thanks, son. You know we have MapQuest now. Actually, does anyone still use MapQuest?
I have no idea.
Thanks, son. You know we have GPS now. I don't understand. What is my motivation in this scene?
Ronnie, we all know you were an actor. Please drop it.